Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin with South Bay Live, and I'm here today with a longtime friend of mine, Violet Comer. And today one of our missions with South Bay Live is to interview up-and-coming artists and really shine a spotlight on local people in the South Bay. So I'm going to be talking to Violet about her new album. She's an up-and-coming singer, and just a little bit about her inspirations and what everything's about. So how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, do you want to give us a little bit of background on who you are, how long you've been singing, just a little bit of background on yourself?
All right. Well, my name is Violet Comer, like she said. I'm 19 years old, and I grew up in Redondo Beach, and then I moved to Culver City. And I have been singing for basically my whole life.
Yeah.
Childhood, like, home videos prove that is the case. It's always me like running up to the camera and singing and trying to put on a show. And then in 4th grade, I started doing musical theater, and I also decided that year like I was going to be Taylor Swift's backup singer. Like this was going to be my profession. I learned all of Forever and Always, and I like got in the living room with my hair curled like Taylor Swift, and I was like, this is it. Like this is going to be the dream. And I wanted to be her backup singer because I really like harmonizing. So that was kind of like my goal with that. And then as I went through middle school and high school, I really wanted to be a dancer, and I focused more on the dancing aspect. And then by the end of high school, I decided I wanted to do musical theater, and I went to Texas Christian University as a musical theater major. And then over the summer of 2020, I kind of realized, I want to go into film, which had been an interest of mine the whole time, and start pursuing singing as more of a like songwriting endeavor rather than in the musical theater setting. So over quarantine, I actually started writing songs, and I've written quite a lot of songs now, so it was hard narrowing it down to the 7 that are on the album. But yeah, singing has been a thing for my whole life.
Awesome. Yeah, so the next thing I wanted to ask you was, what inspires you as an artist? And you've gone a little bit into that, like Taylor Swift, just like seeing media and different artists growing up, but what inspires you, and who are your main like inspirations in music?
Well, I'd say my main inspirations in music are the 1975, they're my favorite band, Wolf Alice, Biba Doobie, Phoebe Bridgers, and Sufjan Stevens. Those are probably my main inspirations, and I think that's because I really admire how like brutally honest their lyrics are. Their lyrics are also really clever and eloquent, and they sonically span a ton of different genres, and they kind of nail them all. And that point is a little bit more towards like 1975, Sufjan Stevens and Wolf Alice. Like they've covered kind of everything, and they do it all so successfully, and that really inspires me because I feel like right now we're kind of on a wave in music of breaking genre. I know like Olivia Rodrigo's talked about that. A lot of artists I listen to talk about that, how nobody really wants to be defined by one thing anymore, and I'm definitely riding that wave of just making music that sounds like everything I listen to rather than kind of pigeonholing myself in one thing.
Into one thing. Yeah, that's super interesting. So that kind of leads into my next question, because I was going to ask you, like, tell us a little bit about your album. What, like, would you classify it as a genre, which it might not have a certain genre classification. So, and you can also, like, as you talk to us, go into a little bit, like, what each song is about.
Yeah. So, genre-wise, it doesn't really fit into one classification. It's not as intensely different as a 1975 album where you could get like screamo and then jazz and then ambient and then pop. Like it's not that different, but I'm working with my cousin Kate Bassage, who is in the band Hello Noon, which is actually a Manhattan Beach local band, and they're amazing. And she's primarily a composer, but she also plays a ton of instruments, and she's producing my album. And one of her things that she brings into composition a lot is like using a ton of different instruments. She really likes to use like a lot of cultural instruments, a lot of differing things, and so my album definitely has a lot of differing sounds like that, which is cool because I can see her rubbing off and like her production leaving its mark on my stuff. But also, like I said earlier, like harmonies, tons of harmonies, that's the through line throughout. And it is very guitar heavy because all my songs start with either me on a guitar or me on a piano, and then they kind of like evolve from there. Like the other day my song Speaking Terms went from kind of a piano ballad to like a rock song after one production session. So I'm really excited, honestly, since I'm in that production phase, to see where everything goes. To my album, it's called Fairytales Clipped Wings, and it is 7 songs, and that title kind of encapsulates the themes that run through all the songs. So the fairy tales part kind of highlights the things that I had wished for or dreamed about or expectations I had. Like, for instance, a relationship I wanted or a friendship I wanted to last or, something else I'd put my hope in. The songs that like best encapsulate that are Glowing and Supposed to. So Glowing is a song about that like social media spiral that we go on where we start comparing ourselves to someone online and we start to want the life they have or want to be like them, but without kind of realizing that like everyone tailors what they put online and that's not, you're not getting the full picture.
Reality.
And even if you like take a photo of yourself crying or do like let people know about your mental health, it's still running through you. Like you're still choosing what to put out.
Filtered.
Yeah, so you're never getting the full picture.
Yes.
So that's what that song's about. That kind of that dream of like wanting to be like someone else. And then Supposed to is actually a song I wrote about a friend and her experience with a guy that she had kind of like seen herself being with and pictured that she'd be with. And then finally when she moved on, he kind of came back into her life. So it's that like fairy tale she had expected versus the kind of clipped wings of that not ending up being the case and like bad timing. And then that brings me into Clipped Wings, which is kind of, you know, things that are holding me back, things that didn't live up to expectations, or things that have kind of stopped me from living to my full potential. And Supposed to, like I said, has aspects of that. And then French Scene, Starter Guitar, and Speaking Terms are about relationships, whether friendly or more, that like didn't last long enough or, you know, ended too soon, didn't end up being what I'd expected them to be. And Girl on Fire is the opening song, Down the Rabbit Hole is the ending song, and they're kind of very thematically similar. They're both about like the COVID depression and anxiety that's been kind of holding me back at times. And health issues that I've struggled with that have kind of stopped me from living up to my full potential. So like I was saying earlier, I'm really a fan of like honest lyric writing and like brutally honest. And I think that all those artists I said inspired me are like really good at that. They don't hold back at all, and like if they feel something, they say it.
The best way to express yourself is through writing.
Exactly. And I really admire that about them. Like I love when I listen to music and I'm like, they said this, like they were allowed to say this, but it's because they felt it. They just said what they felt.
The unfiltered truth.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like that. I've never really been one to journal or anything, but like songwriting is definitely my way of like processing emotion, and like once I've written it out, it's kind of like out of my system, or at least I understand it better. Girl on Fire is one of those songs for me. It's very honest, it's very literal. It's kind of like a diary entry of my time in November 2020, kind of like what was on my mind. Like my anxiety and depression kind of holding me back at times. I just come out of a really rigorous semester that was kind of making me feel burned out. Dealing with social anxiety from being in COVID and like, you know, being kind of scared to be around people, and also those health issues. And so Girl on Fire is definitely like really raw and honest. Like, it is a metaphor for like burning up and burning out. But I actually, as you know, and as most people who know me know,
I did catch on fire.
Let's just say junior year, fringe pants, fireplace, one thing led to another. Both my legs are on fire. My friend Molly's putting out this one. I'm putting out this one. And I was laughing because at that point it was like, of course this would happen to me. But everyone else is like, excuse me, you're literally on fire. But yes, that did happen to me and led to a chain reaction that led to some health problems over the past 4 years since that happened. So we finally this year were able to diagnose it as histamine intolerance as like the overarching problem. And so Down the Rabbit Hole, kind of the very last one, has like that hopefulness of like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I have like actionable steps now to kind of like get out of this rabbit hole of like what's wrong with me. Even like that aside, I always know I can put my faith in God, but like, you know, when you're at your lowest, sometimes it's really hard to see that. You kind of have blinders on.
Definitely.
But no, there is definitely like hope and resolve at the end of the album. It's not just all like poor me.
Yeah.
As I was saying earlier, I'm really inspired by like really good like storytelling, and one way I love to do that is through metaphor. So one of my songs that uses a overarching metaphor is called Starter Guitar, like that I mentioned earlier. In that I'm comparing myself to a starter guitar, something somebody was once really excited about and then kind of forgot about, lost its charm. They found a new one, and you know, that type of thing. So
definitely. Well, that's so interesting. I love those metaphors and everything that goes on. That's so cool. And knowing you as a person, it all makes so much sense.
I feel like, it's going to be interesting to see like the people who know me, like listening to it, because it is very honest. So one thing, like I don't want to sacrifice any like truth value to like guys some of the things. Like there are definitely direct references to maybe people or like things that happened, and that is going to be interesting because I've never released music before to kind of see
the reaction.
The reaction like of people who do know me. So that's something that will be interesting.
That's amazing. So you kind of like talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to ask you because I feel like this was a super big thing during the pandemic. A lot of people had more time on their hands and it led to an increase in anxiety and depression. So how did that affect your writing process? Did that allow you to write more than you would have normally been able to? And I know you kind of mentioned like November 2020, like that was a huge time for you. So
that's a great question. I started kind of songwriting again. I'd written a little in 8th grade when I like wanted a guitar, and I asked my parents for one. I got a starter guitar. I literally never used it because that was when I was still dancing a ton and I just didn't have time. So rip to that guitar. It's still in my room, but I do not use it. That's where the idea for my song came, actually. But I wrote some stuff then, kind of never did in high school. I was busy. You know that. We were very busy students.
Yes.
But I was listening to a lot of like Lizzie McAlpine, and I really liked her songwriting stuff, and I was like, I should like start this. So in January of 2020, I started writing a lot of songs on the piano in the lobby of my dorm, and kind of kept writing songs. Then the pandemic hit. And I'm very much a person of routine. I get really invested in routine, and that kind of keeps order in my life. And so the pandemic kind of hit me.
The shift in routine.
It was not healthy for me. I was like, what do I do
and
with
the
all
lack
this
of
free
routine.
time? Yeah, exactly. I was waking up at like 7 a.m. for classes that used to be at 9 a.m. back in Texas. Everything was thrown out of whack. It was just a very bizarre experience for me. My way of kind of dealing with it all was to kind of withdraw. And like, I did miss my friends and I missed everyone, but like, it was just really hard for me to reach out. I just kind of felt like in my own world, and like nobody kind of understood what I was going through. Obviously everyone was going through it in the whole world. Everyone understood.
Has an individual experience.
But that was definitely kind of how I handled it. In all that kind of isolating myself in my room, there'd kind of be days I didn't really leave. I did end up finding like a daily routine of driving along PCH as my therapy. It's kind of an LA joke, I know, but it is nice. But on those days when I was kind of just alone in my room, I kind of rediscovered my love for music. I've been listening to mostly like musical theater as a musical theater major, and it was very like, this is what you do as your profession. Like, it was for a grade. I was listening to songs I was going to sing. But here I kind of rediscovered my love of music for just music. And I would kind of spend days. I rediscovered the 1975, who had been my favorite band back sophomore year in high school. But I kind of hadn't listened to them for a while, and I like rediscovered them, fell in love again. That's when Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher came out. Biba Doobie, like, discovered her. So a lot of like new artists, and I was just like fully immersed in music. They definitely inspired me to start doing that myself. So my cousin gave me one of her MIDI keyboards, and I kind of would compose things on piano in my room, on GarageBand. Started writing a lot of songs to fill the time. I was always up pretty late, until like 2 a.m. I had a horrible sleeping schedule during the pandemic. But I would always get like inspiration striking at like 2 a.m. I'd like pull out the keyboard and start playing. So that was kind of how it started. And then at school, over fall semester of 2020, I kind of realized I'm writing a lot of like piano ballads, but that's not necessarily what I listen to. I was like, I want to write songs that are more akin to what I listen to, which is more guitar heavy music. So I was like, I really want a guitar. Like, this time I'm going to use it. This is not 8th grade. I'm going to use my guitar. And so I convinced my parents to get me one for my birthday in November. We got sent home on November 14th. We had like a long winter break, like through Thanksgiving to January 14th. Very long. And through that time, I got a guitar, and I just played it like every day. After a week, that's when I wrote Girl on Fire. So I wrote that pretty early into like knowing how to play guitar. I was like teaching myself. Then I started writing guitar songs, and then throughout the semester, I've tried every time I have free time to kind of like write a song, and like that's kind of how I process my emotions. But it definitely started for me during quarantine.
That's awesome. And I love how you like write all your own songs. You do the guitar, you do the piano.
It's
cool.
They're all written by me.
Production is obviously helped.
It's definitely a big help from Kate. I could not do that on my own. As of right now, I'm playing all my own guitar because I wrote it, so I wrote stuff I could do. And I'm playing on my piano. But we just produced part of French Scene yesterday, and Kate's playing some ukulele on there, and I know my cousin Rebecca, she's a viola player, she'll be playing some viola, and some of the other Hello Noon bandmates are playing drums, and maybe bass on some songs.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely collaborative.
That's so cool. So when is this album coming out? Do you have any like expectant date, and where can people find you? On Instagram, any of your platforms?
So as of right now, Kate and I are pushing for this album to be out by late November of 2021. Obviously, we'll see. I would say expect it coming out late 2021 or early 2022. I would plug Hello Noon, because they're such a help on this album, and they're amazing. So check out at Hello Noon Band. I just made the other day a music Instagram and music TikTok, which are both at Violet Comer Music, and my normal main account is just at Violet Comer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Thank
you guys have to check this out when it's out.
Yes, I'm really excited to release my first album.
It's going to be so cool. Check into South Bay Live on our website for more details about this album. And follow Violet on all of her platforms as well. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.